white, went on trial. He'd been a former supervisor, he'd been a cop, he'd been a firefighter. And somehow in San Francisco, the district attorney managed to impanel a jury that was all heterosexual and all white. It's quite an achievement in San Francisco. So the rumors began to fly. He's going to get off, he's going to get off. They're going to let him get away with it. I couldn't imagine such a thing. I was down at the courthouse listening to the testimony, and then on May 21st, 1979, the verdict came down, and Dan Wyatt was convicted of manslaughter. And we learned he would serve only 5 years in prison for murdering George Moscone, reloading, going to the other end of City Hall, and murdering Harvey Milk. We marched again that night, but not with candles. We took torches and we stormed City Hall. We burned every police car we could find. I was summoned before the grand jury, which was frightening, and refused to cooperate, which was even more frightening. But at the end of the day, I have to tell you what happened was that the police department and the fire department were integrated. And departments that had been all white and all male and all heterosexual suddenly weren't. And it was a very, very different city after that night. Another thing that happened, I apologize for my voice. I am still recovering from the smoke from the fires north of San Francisco last week, and did a number on me, as you can tell. I apologize. One odd thing that happened was, and I don't offer this as career guidance, but after being accused of inciting a riot, I got an awesome job. I went to our state capitol in Sacramento to work as a legislative consultant to the Speaker of the Assembly, and my job was to look at all of the bills that came before the committee and advise the Democratic members on what the leadership position was. And so it was in that capacity, in the first week of June 1981, that I read in the Centers for Disease Control Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report the first 4 paragraphs that were written about the disease we now call HIV/AIDS. That was June of 1981. By November of 1985, almost everyone I knew was dead, dying, or caring for someone who was dying. And I was sure it was all over. I didn't know how we could move forward. For a decade and a half, in my neighborhood alone, we lost 2,000 people a year. And it seemed to me that we would lose everything. We had just begun to win our rights, and they were being swept away, subjected to these popular votes. You know, I don't care who you are or what you look like. If you give me enough money to buy ad time, I'll take away your rights. Basic human rights should never be put on the ballot. And the AIDS epidemic unleashed an evilness and a hatred that manifested in bumper stickers that were sold at Republican conventions that said things like, AIDS, it's killing all the right people. The first cases were among homosexual men of many races. The second group most afflicted that was identified were dark-skinned Haitian immigrants. So from the very first days of the pandemic, that horrible, malevolent combination of homophobia and racism created the situation today. And I tell people, if you want an example of the consequences of homophobia, maybe you should consider the tens of millions of dead heterosexuals who died because the one nation on earth that had the power to stop this plague didn't do so because it was killing all the right people. I'm still angry about it. That November of 1985, we marched on November 27th, as we always do, to remember Harvey and George. But I saw the headline that morning, and it said 1,000 of my neighbors had already died of AIDS. So as people gathered with their candles, I had stacks of poster board and stacks of markers, and I asked people to write the names of their friends, their lovers, their neighbors who had died of AIDS. And we carried these signs with our candles to City Hall, and we left the candles at City Hall, and it began to drizzle and rain. And we walked further down the plaza to the federal building. I'd hidden extension ladders in the shrubbery around the corner. And I got a nun with a beard on a bicycle to distract the police over there.
Yes!
Put our ladders up the gray stone facade of the building and had big rolls of tape on our wrists, and we covered the wall with this patchwork of names of our young friends who had died so horribly, so painfully. No one was talking, there were no speeches, no songs, just thousands and thousands of people standing in the light rain and reading these names and whispering to each other, I knew him. We went to school together. I didn't know. No one told me. I wish I could have helped. And you could just feel the yearning need to find a way to grieve together and also a way to sound the alarm, to warn the world of what was coming. Because we knew we weren't stupid. There's no such thing as a gay virus. Are you out of your minds? This is going to affect the entire planet. Of course, we had a president then who has since been elevated to sainthood in some quarters. His name was Reagan. He did not say the word AIDS publicly until more Americans had died of AIDS than died in the entire Vietnam War. And I was furious and I was angry. And I remember getting off my ladder and walking through the crowd and listening to people whispering and looking at those patchwork of names. And I got to the edge of the crowd and I looked up and over their heads and I saw these names and I thought to myself, it looks like some kind of strange quilt. I thought of my grandma and my great-grandma, Irene Rupert, back in Bee Ridge, Indiana, and the quilt she'd sewn. And it was such a middle American and middle class and traditional family values sort of symbol. I believe in traditional family values, and I believe that they apply to me and my family as well. That was that moment, and I kind of shut my eyes, and in the back of my mind, I could see the National Mall covered with fabric from the steps of the Capitol to the Washington Monument. I thought about it for a year. Everybody told me it was the stupidest thing they'd ever heard of. And I bet many of you have already experienced this, the chorus of no. And every time you get an idea and you say, I'm going to do this, they rise up to tell you, oh, you can't do that, that's too expensive, that'll never work, I don't think so, Cleve, that's really complicated. Does anybody even sew anymore? It ended up being the world's largest community arts project. So those you young people here today, when you get that vision, when you get that voice in your heart telling you what you've got to do, and everybody tells you it totally sucks, please tell up and do it anyway. I didn't get sick until '93. And then I got really sick. I moved out of the city. I got a little cabin out in the Redwood Forest north of San Francisco and got ready to die. I thought I was done. I was sure it was over. It was over now, for sure. I had pneumocystis pneumonia. I lost my fingernails and my toenails and my hair. I was going blind. I couldn't walk without assistance. And spent months just in my little cabin, trying to stay active as much as I could. ACT UP stormed the FDA. ACT UP stormed the NIH. It wasn't over. We were just beginning. We marched and we fought and we got arrested and we wrote letters and we marched and we testified and we lobbied and we got arrested and arrested and arrested. And finally they changed the protocol. And in the fall of 1995, as I was nearly dying, the medication was made available to me. The medication where the research had been subsidized by tax dollars, but the pharmaceutical industry was withholding it to maximize their profits, and we said, no, give us the medication now. And that is the only reason I am alive, because of ACT UP.